we have Nana joining us from Access UK to share with us the support that is on offer from his perspective too. Nana, welcome.
How are you doing? You okay?
I'm great. I'm really excited. And I think we're going to share your slides and video for you. So I'll hide my face and I'm ready to join.
No problem. Thank you.
My name is David Matuko. I was born in Zimbabwe and raised in London. My mum always told me, if I work hard, I can overcome any obstacle. I had huge hopes when I graduated with such a good degree, and I still do. My university tutor told me my CV could not be any better. However, it's hard to get replies from employers, let alone interviews. My white counterparts are getting the same roles I'm applying for with the same qualifications I have. I did think of changing my name, but I realized I shouldn't have to change my identity to be accepted. I'm surrounded by these buildings. This is where I should be. This is where I want to work. Today, I take a different approach. I want my CV to be seen. Putting myself out there on my own terms symbolizes the same work ethic that is shared by other black men. I want to be seen for who I am, what I've achieved, and who I can be. I do think there are other young black men like me that give up and lose hope on their dreams. And we all just need the opportunity and encouragement. There are hundreds of qualified young black men in every corner of London.
Right. So that video, I think, exemplifies some of the challenges that young black people face in the job market, and it's a problems that there's a lot of like misconceptions and misunderstanding of how it kind of manifests in the real world. But just to go back to myself, my name is Nana Agyeman, and I'm the co-founder and director of an organization called Access UK, which was set up in 2012 following the London riots. And it's really set up to plug that mainstream gap in services for young black people, to essentially raise outputs or outcomes around education, employment, and most importantly, enterprise. That's young black people setting up their own businesses as a solution to the disparities in employment opportunities. So my experience in the sector spans over 25 years, you know, doing employability consultations and working with the youth. And I'm also an active community activist who's passionate about creating the necessary conditions for the BME community to become not only economically resilient, but also self-reliant, which I think is very, very important. There's 50% of black households are living below the poverty line. So obviously it's very, very important that we get these things, done to address these issues, these really deep systemic disadvantages. Can we move on to the next slide, please? So now I'm going to give you the historical context of our work as a so-called BME career solution specialist. 50% of young BMEs between the ages of 18 and 24 are unemployed in the UK on average. Post-pandemic, there's always been a post-pandemic rise in unemployment, in particular for young ethnic minority job seekers. And obviously this is carried on through to the present day. Next slide, please. Okay, I think I mentioned that already. I was ahead of myself. Next one. Right, causes of inequalities and outcomes. So we're just going to go through some of the reasons why there's these disparities. If you could just increase the size of the text, please. Thank you very much. So the main one that comes up again and again is employer discrimination, and we talk about simple things like, for example, sending out CV, say, and then Agyeman like myself against John Smith. John Smith was deemed to be someone who's, from this country, not a foreigner, as it were. And Nana, by the mere fact of my name is Nana Agyeman, will be deemed to be a foreigner, whether consciously or unconsciously. So therefore, what happens is that you can have a situation where someone's got you have two candidates, one black, one white. They've got the same qualifications, but John Smith will get more interviews than Agyeman. So that's the simplest form how it kind of works out in the real world. Lack of social networks. BME candidates tend to have less of networks to go into. So, for example, typically a second or third year student at university will build up these networks. So by the time they graduate in the third year, they're obviously the transition into work is much more seamless than a black person who hasn't got those social networks. Structural inequalities and overrepresentation in non-Russell Group universities. Russell Group universities being deemed as like the creme de la creme education institutions in the country. It gives you that advantage. Again, it's about your networks. So because less BME students are going into these Russell universities, there's a clear disadvantage there. And the work we do kind of highlights the importance of reaching to these heights and applying for Russell Group universities that ordinarily a lot of BME candidates wouldn't really consider. Lack of access to culturally competent careers and employment solution services. This means that it's not just about getting a bunch of black or BAME job seekers in one room and then ticking the box and saying, okay, we're culturally competent because we have a high levels of ethnic minorities on our case books. It's not about that. It's what you do over and above that's different from everybody else. What is it you're providing that's different, from just writing a CV, giving people interview skills, providing travel to get to interviews, etc., etc. There has to be something over and above that really understands the nuances of being a BME job seeker within this context. And unfortunately, a lot of organizations don't have anything to offer when it comes to that regard. There's also an overemphasis on finding employment rather than entrepreneurship opportunities, self-employment, or job creation, which kind of leaves that BME job seeker or the person looking for opportunity at a disadvantage. So they need to be much more focused on entrepreneurship, helping them to essentially employ themselves and create opportunities for themselves. Can we go a bit further down, please? Again, I think this was touched on earlier by previous speaker, stagnant, social mobility, substandard careers advice, which I mentioned earlier, lack of visible role models. So we know in the community, there are lots of individual success stories, but unfortunately, the majority of these people, when they're successful, that's their route out of their condition, and they never tend to give anything back. So invariably, a lot of young people are seeing representation of success are sometimes people that are up to no good, because those that are doing good, the professionals, etc., they're nowhere to be seen. So those visible role models definitely need to be more obvious to young people to aspire to. Right. Yeah, there's also the traditional, kind of decades of underemployment and unemployment that's been going on for years. So this is just continues without really anyone really addressing the issue or kind of working out how to solve the issue. Lack of transferable wealth, intergenerational wealth, etc. So this is more, again, a little bit more systemic. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay. So these are some of the practical solutions. I think we missed a slide, but we'll go to this anyway, just to save time. So these are some of the practical solutions in terms of addressing the disparities. Inclusion of financial literacy in the school curriculum, promotion of rites of passage, initiatives such as Manhood Academy, Muhammad Academy. This is basically to give a sense of cultural pride to young Black people within the system. So that could be the foundation to better achievement. Establishment of independent schools of excellence, mandatory teaching of Black history within the school curriculum, which kind of links into the point I made earlier about the cultural enrichment of opportunities, raising the standard of quality careers guidance within schools. And if you go back to the previous example, the previous practical solution slide, I can add something more to this. Yeah, if you could just make it bolder, thank you. Yeah, so again, greater emphasis on entrepreneurship and business startup training, focus on emerging markets. So moving away from the traditional subjects that are taught in schools and kind of focusing on game levelers like the coding, forex trading, cryptocurrency, etc. And these are things that are very exciting for the young, up and coming young people. They're things that they hear about, subjects, but not necessarily know about. So this, I think, will be a great kind of enhance their chances and social mobility, etc. Greater investment into BME careers and employment solutions providers such as Access UK, because there's a real lack of this provision and lack of investment in organizations such as ourselves. Greater exposure to Russell Group universities, i.e. widening the participation programs, increasing the visibility in disadvantaged communities, so they can aspire to go to these Russell Group universities. And as I touched on earlier, visible BME role models. So can we skip a couple of slides and go to them? Yeah, keep on going. Where are we? Okay. Right. Okay. So demonstrating employability programs aimed at minority ethnic people and their successes. As I mentioned earlier, there is a select group of BME career solutions providers in the UK, and I'm just going to mention a few besides ourselves. So you've got ARE, which is actually for race equality, formerly known as BTEC. You've got ELBA, which is East London Business Alliance, Making a Leap, Reach Society, and Amos Bursary. Access UK operates on an average 70% conversion rate with young BME service users. Notable successful programs include the MOU, which is what was shown in the video, which was MOU was a collaborative 3-year initiative to support young BME men into employment in the London boroughs of Brent and Newham. Next slide, please. Right. So off the back of all our work over the years, we've decided, and off the back of the COVID situation, where we have to transition our services online, we've decided to launch our O.B.E platform this year. So this is basically scaling up our existing services that we offer primarily in London, right across the whole geographical area. So the first phase of this digital platform, solutions platform, will operate in London and offer bespoke and tailored career services for young Black people or anybody for that matter, but with a specific focus on young black people. Initially in London, like I said, it'll be all done remotely to ensure that they're all getting good quality career services, tailored and culturally competent career services, throughout London. So they won't be restricted by any geographical location. The second phase, obviously, once we kind of tested out the service, the effectiveness will reach out to a much wider geographical area, really across, the Midlands and going right across the country. So that's our next phase of our evolution in terms of offering our tailored and culturally competent services. Next slide, please. And yeah, this is just our contact. If anybody wants to reach out to us to kind of work with us or kind of, collaborate, etc., this is where you can reach us. We're very, very much strong. We're very strong on collaboration and working with partners because two heads are always better than one. And it gives us an opportunity to bridge the gap between the BME, our BME service users, employers, and, everybody else that's involved in addressing this deep, long-standing systemic issue in terms of employment and, life opportunities for young BME people. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. And Nana, what do you think? Big question for you. There's no small questions here for you today, Nana. What do you think is the most effective way youth organisations can address the employability challenges of minority ethnic people? Like what one? I imagine it's a series of small changes, but what one way could they do it?
Oh, there is quite a few. I mentioned quite a few in my presentation, but for me, the key thing is understanding the challenges that face this particular group, i.e. from kind of the advisory perspective. Because if you think that just doing a good CV and giving someone interview prep is going to be the solution, it doesn't really address the other side of the equation, which is obviously the employer's attitudes towards particular people, just the systemic stuff, inequalities, and just having a nuanced understanding that that person walking through the door has got layers of intersectional challenges, and just having a good understanding of it and how to kind of unravel those. Also, I would say looking at the entrepreneurship piece and self-employment, etc., and kind of giving that real encouragement to basically open up their options. For example, if my eldest daughter just finished university recently, she's got great qualifications, but at the end of the day, if she goes to work, there's somebody that's more than likely going to not look like her that's going to interview her to say whether that person's going to come in, my daughter's going to come into work or not, or get the job. So it's about equalizing those opportunities through things like entrepreneurship and diversifying their options.
Amazing. And I had a question, Nana, too. I really found all of your session really interesting, but I found the visible role models and kind of the language around having visible role models that actually within the community wants kind of, I'm going to say success, because that's the best way to describe it, whilst we can all measure success differently, but actually once success has been achieved, actually it's quite difficult to then be able to be seen. And whilst I don't have the same direct experience of it too, but kind of having grown up and out of the social kind of mobility of my own parents and my own family, it can be quite difficult to connect back and to kind of not to be accepted, but to belong somewhere. And do you think there's a rising number of people actually that then don't belong back at home, if you like, and then they don't really belong in the workspace either, and actually that struggle and connection is difficult?
You know what? That's really good. I didn't even think about that, the end bit of what you just said, in terms of being stuck in that limbo. I don't think what it is, when you're from a disadvantaged background, most of your ambition is to get out of your socioeconomic status, to improve your lot. So that's not the issue. The issue for me is once these people are successful, my friend's got a program he runs in Parliament called Inspirational Youth, where it brings all these big wigs, from all different walks of life. They come there, give great speeches. And my question to them was always, it's not good you being here in Parliament when if I lined up 100 of my beneficiaries in Tottenham or Hackney, they wouldn't know who you are. So really, who are you really trying to impress? Like, who's these speeches, who are they for? So for me, it's about bringing that back to the communities and giving young people visible, like I said, visible representation of that success, wherever it may be, besides what they see around them, which is most of the time negative, or negative influences, or the role models that we don't need for them to aspire to. So for me, it's not it's not really an issue. Most of the people I mentioned are kind of top of the game. They're like, the head of banking in Lloyd's or here and there and everywhere. And what I always say is that you can't judge the status of a people by individuals. The question is, what is the average person on the street? What are they saying? What's their lifestyle like? So you can't just pluck individuals from communities and say, look, here's a representation of success. Why can't you be like them? Sort of thing. So we have to look at the kind of the everyday man and woman and kind of judge where they are in terms of social mobility.
Amazing, thank you. And I think often what we perceive as inaction is a worry about getting it right in the first place, particularly for protected groups. But you're right, Joe, too. The work the Careers Enterprise Company have done, we worked heavily with them on their employer standards. Just getting started, I think sometimes just taking that small step, just showing you're committed really goes a long way for partners, for young people engaging too. If they can see that you're trying, you're committed, they're likely to engage as well, which is good. Oh, fantastic. Thank you all so much. Thank you all so much for joining. That's our questions for today. If you want to take your cameras down, I just want to summarize quickly the things we've heard today about young people. It has been such a great session, and to hear from local authorities, from people across the education sector, and from Access UK in working on those highly targeted groups. It's been fantastic.
My brother's been laid off for more than 2 years now. Ooh, can't get a job. Billy can't get a job. Ooh, yeah. They gotta listen to the blues. Help them to strive. Help them to move on. Help them to have some future.